Breaking moments ago, the White House now responding to this stunning Wall Street Journal reporting that China is talking to Cuba about building a military facility on the island just 100 miles from Florida. Here's the new response.
Is trying to improve their global reach and influence and, again, their global intelligence collection capabilities. It's not like we aren't aware of it. It's not like we haven't been monitoring it. And quite frankly, it's not like we haven't taken steps and will continue to take steps to thwart it and to be able to protect our own secrets and our own national security.
Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe is standing by. First to Fox Business correspondent Edward Lawrence reporting from the White House. Hi, Edward.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, we have a listening post now, Chinese listening post in Cuba. Now, it could expand possibly to a full military training base. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that those talks between Cuba and China are in the final stages, but not complete yet. The Biden administration reportedly reaching out to Cuba to stall the talks, stoking fears of Cuba giving up its sovereignty to China. Now, regardless of what China does, could be a spy airship, could be exposed hack of U.S. military communications, could be stealing intellectual property. The president sees China as a competitor, not an adversary, something Secretary of State Antony Blinken told his Chinese President Xi in their meeting. He also says he pushed them on their military operations in Cuba.
This is something we're going to be monitoring very, very closely, and we've been very clear about that. And we will protect our homeland. We will protect our interests.
And Representative Mike Garcia says that it's weak foreign policy that has enabled China.
It's a very dangerous thing to continue to appease a dragon that is clearly looking to not only annex Taiwan in the next several years, but to also become the only leading superpower on the global stage and surpassing not only the United States, but everyone else around us. And that is what China is trying to do. And Blinken is frankly enabling this behavior.
And he thinks we should boycott, divest, and use sanctions to get China to stop. Martha?
Thank you very much, Edward Lawrence. Let's bring in John Ratcliffe, former Director of National Intelligence under former President Trump. Great to see you, John. Thank you very much for being here. So this is very troublesome. And while they're still talking about building the actual facility, it's clearly part of the plan. It's part of this Project 141 by China. And the reporting shows that China and Cuba already jointly run 4 eavesdropping stations on Cuba, according to U.S. officials. So what do you make of the White House response to this?
Well, first, I think this is evidence, of what China is attempting to do. As you said, Martha, this is part of the plan, and it's only the latest evidence of China's aggression. So Chinese spy balloons, surveillance stations, buying farmland near our military facilities, downloading Americans' information from TikTok. The list goes on and on. The Chinese are keeping tabs on us because it's evidence that China is preparing for war with us. We're in a cold war with China. The problem is, we're not in one with them. They're at war with us, and we're not in one with them because of the Biden administration's approach to each one of these situations, which is to view it, unfortunately, as a political problem, not as a political, they view it as a political problem instead of a national security problem. So, we've seen this with each of these instances where, whether it's the spy balloon or the surveillance stations, whatever it may be, you hear the Biden administration, Martha, talking more about that this is not unprecedented and that it happened during the Trump administration instead of confronting China with the issue. Look, when the old Soviet Union moved missiles into Cuba, we didn't say we're going to monitor this. We didn't say we're concerned about this. We confronted them. We threatened them in a way that forced them to back down. And that's simply not, there's no evidence that that's happening here with this administration with regard to China. And that's why in this Cold War, China is advancing. They're on the march and they're winning. And we're losing because of the Biden administration's really approach of appeasement, viewing them as a competitor. And Antony Blinken's latest trip to China is only further evidence of how we're losing. Look at what China got out of that meeting. They got concessions on export controls. They got promises to remove sanctions for human rights violations. We got an audience, and in that audience, we were told, we're not going to open up military-to-military communications yet. So, we continue to lose because of the approach that this administration has been taking with China.
You know, when you talk about the Cold War, it's almost like they're following that map in many ways. They also want to open military facilities in Cambodia, Djibouti. They're working on something in the UAE as well. According to building new bases, new Chinese bases. They've ingratiated themselves in all these countries by helping them with their infrastructure, and then they get an open invitation to build a base. If you could tell the Biden administration, look, you know, this is a huge concern, what would you tell them the response should be? Because Cuba is very different than what's going on in Cambodia, 100 miles away. What should they do?
Address the national security interest first, not the political ramifications. You know, we need to recognize that China's our #1 geopolitical threat from a nation-state perspective, and that we need to confront them. We need to acknowledge that they're not our friend. They are not a competitor. They are an adversary. And you're right, Martha. They're using the Belt and Road Initiative to gain a foothold all over the map. And they are succeeding in that regard. And we've got to counter it. We've got to counter it aggressively. And, you know, diplomacy is important, but diplomacy only succeeds if you back it up with leverage and strength, and we're just not doing that. And honestly, I hope that they do, but they'd have to reverse course because they keep losing ground, and there's no sign that they're going to change policies with regard to China.